Ask Dan Schneider. On this Ask Dan Schneider, I'm going to do a generic question. A lot of people have asked me over the years, have I ever made an error? Do I admit my errors? That kind of thing. And so over the years, I've gotten dozens, if not hundreds of variants on this. So this is a generic one, not to anyone particular. But recently, I had done a video talking about the Monty Hall problem, and turned out that I was wrong. And I'll link to the video below this video. The thing that was wrong was that in looking up, or the person who actually had emailed me the Monty Hall problem emailed me, I guess, what you would call the original version of the Monty Hall problem, in which it was posited that you had a choice of three doors, and the one door was given to you or assigned to you. And this was a variant on the Monty Hall problem from Let's Make a Deal. The problem was I was going off of that Monty Hall problem and not the problem that is the most famous version of it, which is a version that was answered by Marilyn Vos Savant, the so-called world's smartest woman back in the late 80s or 1990 or so. And there was a slight variant in that in the Vos Savant version of the problem, the person gets to pick the door. And for reasons too complex that you can easily Google, though, the difference is that you have a 1 in 3 choice if you get to pick, but it's always 1 in 2 if you're given the choice, because the host, the Monty Hall character, has to give you a final choice between a goat and the car to win. So I was wrong on that, and I was wrong for a couple of reasons. Number one is that I didn't really read closely the Marilyn Vos Savant and see the slight difference in being given the door or choosing the door. So that was number one. But even more so is, I think, because it's put in the form of a brain teaser, it's a puzzle that is meant to deceive. And this is what brain teasers do. They play on confusions of numbers and visuals, as well as gaps in logic. And for example, the difference between 1/2, 1/3, and 2/3, which all have the digits 1, 2, and 3 in equal numbers, is more confusing. And what came to me one night, a few nights after posting that first video, was, what if the person was given an infinite number of doors, and the minute that they chose one door, all the rest of the doors vanished? Clearly, then, the person would have one in an infinite choice, so it would certainly make sense that they would have to switch to one of the other doors, since Monty is going to get rid of one of the two other doors. So when I had this sort of like dream, this lucid dream of that, it all came into context, and I went back and looked at the original problem presented to me and compared it to the Vos Savant problem. So it was sort of my own nagging in the back, and I talked about it being a semiotic problem, and it is, because it is a brain teaser which is meant to deceive. So that's basically it there. There were many versions of the Monty Hall problems, a lot of bad explanations. Even the Vos Savant problem, or version of the problem, is poorly written and put out, and this was criticized apparently in a famous paper by 3 or 4, I think, psychologists. But anyway, the semiotics of the problem is not within the problem, but how the problem is actually told, how the brain teaser is told, and the slight variance of the version. And I fell into the trap of reading, I guess, what one would call the original version of the problem, and not realizing that there were up to maybe 24 variants. So thanks for people who have asked that. And so I do admit that I was in error on that one, and have done similarly in other problems.